Hi guys, good to see you all again for another Hairbrain Live. We've got a bit of an interesting one today. We're in my living room, so it should be fun. We've got a lovely little haircut to show you, a bit of a bob variation with a bit of a mullet. So I just want to show you guys the sectioning pattern before we start. So I started off by making this kind of inverted triangle section in the bottom here, and I braided it away. So this bit is going to stay nice and long. After that, what we did is we found the corners on the back and we sectioned off that back piece, and just for a little bit of balance I've taken a section in the middle, but we're going to cut this all in one section. We're going to have it a bit graduated. From the sides here we're going to start to angle it a little bit away from the face, and we're going to be elevating up as we go to create a little bit of a soft bob shape into the front of the face. And then through this top section, we're going to layer it all nice and round and connecting it into the back. So it's going to have this quite kind of fitted shape, quite an interesting shape going on. If you guys have any questions, let me know. We've got my beautiful wife behind the camera who's going to ask all the questions for me. And also let us know where you're tuning in from and where you're in quarantine currently around the world. So I'm just going to first grab some water. We're going to unravel these two sections in the back here, and we're going to start with these two sections in the back. So we're going to start with creating our graduation first. Just going to find the water spray. Sorry, it's behind me. Okay. Gorgeous. So what I'm going to do from this first section here is I'm going to start to make these two into one section. I'm going to comb the hair down. I'm going to take a nice little center section, and this is going to start to determine the graduation that we're going to see in the back in this area. So I'm just going to take my first section in the center, and I'm going to comb either side away. This is just going to allow me to see what I'm doing, and it's ready for the next section when I want to take it. So what I want to do here is I want to create something quite flat in the back, so I don't want it to be kind of very heavy graduation. I want it to sit quite flat against the head shape. This is my lovely model, by the way, Lilu. Say hi. Alright, we're good. So what we're going to do here, I'm just going to bring the doll a little bit more down, and what this is going to allow me to do is have my hands a little bit higher up, so I'm going to have a much flatter graduation when I finish. Whenever I want to create a more flatter graduation, I always start from the top, because we're encouraging ourselves to go a little bit flatter as we work. So I'm going to put my comb in, just put my fingers behind it, come out, decide the length that I want to create in the back and the middle here, and start to cut this in. Okay, so once I've determined that first section, I'm going to then start working my way down. And so the shape that we're going to look for in the back here, it's going to be something quite square in the back. So in the back we're going to try and work, when we work through either side, is keep it more of a square, flat shape in the back. And at the very end afterwards, we'll allow our little bit of a mullet piece to come into effect. So if you're just tuning in, let us know where you're tuning in from, please. We'd love to hear from you.
Well, we've got people coming from Hong Kong, Canada,
Cool.
from Mallorca,
Nice. Not a bad place to be in quarantine, Mallorca.
Texas.
Very nice. Very nice. Thanks so much for tuning in, everyone. Cool. So we're just refining that first section just to make sure it's the length that we really want to see. Obviously, the first section is our guideline, so it's very important that we make sure that that first section is nice and correct before we move on. So just combing it down just to see where it's sitting around the head shape. So because you guys are watching from this side, I'm going to start cutting from this side first. So it doesn't actually matter which side you start from, the left or the right. It's whatever you feel comfortable with. And so what we're looking to do from this second section, we're looking to over-direct the hair a little bit towards the middle, just because we slowly want to build more length as we get to the corner. So we want the shape to be more square. So if we look at it from the side, we just want the shape to be more square, but with this graduated cutting angle. So it's a graduated cutting angle, but from side to side, we want it to be a little bit square. So for that reason, we're just going to be over-directing the hair a little bit towards the previous. we can see our guideline from the first section we've cut, and we're just coming in and we're going to start connecting it. Great. So this is where I enjoy having my very little scissors, because it's much easier to go in and grab the hair that we're looking for. I'm just doing a little cross check just to make sure we're going on the right angle and we're not over directing too much to the middle. So just a touch of a refinement. So I think it's always important as you're working to just constantly evaluate how it's going as you work. You'll have much less to fix afterwards if you just keep cross-checking as you work. So I think that's one really nice thing to do, is just take that little bit of time to just cross-check as you're working. It will really save you a lot of hassle at the end. So again, I'm just trying to create this flat graduation, and we're working from the center towards the sides. And what I'll do is, once I've done one side, I'll do a little bit of a recap before I move on to the second side as well.
So we've got a comment from Amin.
Yeah.
I hope I pronounced it right. He says, #1 hairdresser.
Oh, thanks so much, brother. That's really kind of you. Really, really kind of you. It's a great time now to be sharing a bit of education and a bit of love with everyone. I think we're all kind of itching to get back to doing hair these days. So it's quite good. I think this is the first time I've cutting hair in a while, actually. So it's nice to be able to share it with you guys here as well. So what I'm doing is I'm just continuing what I had done from before. So it's very repetitious. I'm starting from the top and I'm working my way down. So what this does is it encourages me to create a much flatter graduation. So if I had started from the bottom and worked my way up, I would be encouraging myself to create a little bit of a heavier graduation. And because we want this to be a little bit more of a modern feel to it, we're just going to try and work with something that's a little bit more flatter before we move on to the sides. Okay. So we can start to see the way the graduation is built in the back here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a very, very quick cross check just to have a look to make sure that it's looking nice and square to me. And so providing that it's looking nice and square to me, I'm happy. I'm going to move on to the second side, and then once I've done that, I will then cross-check the haircut. So what I don't want to do is cross-check the one side, find that I've made a mistake on the second side, and then have to cross-check it again. So that's why I'd rather finish this zone that I'm working on the back, and then cross-check it all in one fluid way. So I find that's also very important. It's not just about that you cross-check, it's also when you cross-check. So I try and finish both sides first so I can cross-check them together to make sure there's balance, rather than checking one side and then the second side and realizing that they actually don't connect at all.
So we've got a comment from Dilkash. I hope I pronounced your name right. She says, yes, my hands are itching and it feels so good to watch you cut.
Well, I think what we all have to do is get on Hairbrain and buy some dolls and practice as much as we can in the time that we have. You know, I was always thinking to myself, when am I going to have time to do some hair? When am I going to have time to do some hair to practice? Just to have a bit of fun, and it seems like now is the best possible time to have that fun. You know, think about ideas for the next photo shoot and things like that. So definitely now is the right time. So last section in the back here, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to start cross-checking afterwards. So we're going for this nice little flat graduation in the back. It's going to have this square feeling to it. And then where everything's going to kind of change is when I start doing the sides. That's when you're really going to start seeing a slightly more interesting shape come out as well. So we've got this long piece. This is going to be our mullet area, so this is going to stay long and soft. we're just working through the back, creating this nice square graduation in the back. And now I have to come through and make sure I cross-check properly. I believe whatever we do in life, the first time we do it, it's never perfect. And that's why we want to, sorry, let me move over for you. And that's why we want to have a really nice cross-check as we work, just to make sure everything is as balanced as possible. Okay, so I'm just working through the center first. So I'm just making sure the center is balanced. There's no point in checking side to side if the center is not balanced. So once we're very conscious that the center is balanced, we then can go through one side first and then the other. And so in this instance, what I'm going to do is I'm going to work through the right side first, and then I'm going to go to the left afterwards. So I'm just moving the hair away, coming from the underneath, grabbing a section and just making sure that's nice and square in my fingers.
We got a comment from Shandice.
Hi Shandice.
She asked, what length are you leaving those square layers in the back?
So these long bits in the back, for now we're going to leave them exactly the length that they're going to be for now. Once I've dried the hair and I look at it how it dries naturally, I'll then be coming in and softening the hair and seeing the length that I want. So to be honest, for now I haven't quite decided. I think I'm going to look at it as an all-over image when it's finished, and from that point on decide whether I want to leave all the length that we created there, or whether I want to actually go back in and take it shorter. So what I've done is I've done the one side, and now I'm going to go through and cross-check the second side before we go onto the sides of the haircut. So I'm just cross-checking the back. So for those of you that are just joining us, thank you. Let us know where you're tuning in from. And what I've done is I've done this kind of quite flat graduation in the back. So the angle is not very steep. So if MJ shows you from here, the angle is quite flat. It's not very heavy. It's quite flat. So we're maintaining quite a flat graduation, not a heavy graduation. And we're doing something quite square. So I've actually done my original sections vertical, and now I'm just coming across horizontally and making sure that it's more flat for myself. Beautiful. So if you guys have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. We'd love to answer any technical questions that we can. We always love a good chin wag, so don't be shy.
We've got Francesco.
Hi Francesco, how you doing, man?
He's good, I'm sure. He asked, why did you leave the square section on the back, Michael? Much love from London.
Yeah, I think what I wanted to do here is I really want to see this kind of flatness in the back and across the sides, but then at the same time I also want to see a corner here as well. I want this to look very much like a man-made shape, so it's going to look very much like I created something here. It didn't happen by accident, and having these strong corners is going to give a kind of interesting shape and strength to this haircut. So it'll be very nice at the end for you guys to see how, just from putting the corners in, it's created quite a strong silhouette. So it's going to look quite strong just because of the squareness. So that's me done in the back for now. What I'm going to do now is I'm moving on to the side sections. And so what you can see is I've taken these sections from the top, which go from the temple area, and they curve around to the back. So the reason why it goes down in the back is because I wanted to encourage it to be heavier at the back here, and it's going to be more softer and lighter in the front. So going from a lower parting in the bottom towards a higher parting at the top is going to encourage me to sit for something a bit flatter up here and a bit heavier at the bottom. So sections can do a lot of things. They can encourage you to kind of hit the placement that you want. And it also just looks nice, you know. I think it's like when you look at a nicely designed car, there's all these lines in it and angles, and it's the same thing when I'm kind of designing a haircut. You're thinking about where the placements are going to be and what's going to look best. Cool. Tell me.
So we've got more people coming in. We have people from South Africa, Miami,
Nice.
Florida,
Beautiful.
Spain.
Amazing. So just to give you a quick recap, guys, for those of you that are tuning in, we've got our little mullety area which we're leaving out. So we've got this lovely little braid going in that's going to stay in the back until afterwards. We created some very flat graduation in the back that's square. And now what we're going to be doing is we're going to be coming to the sides here, and we're going to be starting to create the graduation and the length in the front. So when I'm cutting this, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be angling my fingers a little bit away from the head shape. If my fingers stayed tight, I would end up very short in the front. But what I'm trying to do is by angling my fingers away from the face, what I'm doing is I'm going to leave more length in the front, hopefully to around the mouth area. So I'm just going to start by taking my first section a little bit higher, because what I need to do is I need to have a guideline. And so what I've done is by doing the back, I've got a little bit of a guideline piece that I can work from in the back. So I'm just going to take that out.
So we've got a comment from Dodra.
Yeah.
She's asking, are you over directing to the center? I'm guessing this is from when you started from the back.
So from the back, what we did was we over-directed to the previous. So let me try and go back for you for a second. So in the side here, what I'm doing is I'm just pulling it straight out from the roots, and I'm angling my fingers a little bit away from the head shape. And the amount of elevation I'm doing is consistent with what we had in the back. But if we leave that for a second and we go back to the back, what I did was I took my first section. Sorry, it's going to be easier. I took my first section, and when I did my second section, I brought it onto my first. When I went from my second section to my third, I brought it to my second. So I'm just working to the previous, which what it does is it slowly, by working each one to the previous, you're slowly maintaining a bit more length in the sides, hence why we have this kind of squarish shape in the sides. So I hope that answers your question. If it does, give it a thumbs up and let us know. If not, let us know and we'll try and go over it again. So coming back to the sides now, what we're doing is we're just taking these horizontal sections, and we're going to be using the back as a guideline. So we're going to be connecting the back in, and we're going to be angling our fingers a little bit away from the head shape. So we're trying to maintain a little bit more length in the front, so I can see where it's falling on the head shape. So we're just trying to maintain a little bit more length. Obviously this softness is going to align a little bit better when we've got the mullet in as well. So we're creating graduation from here on up, and we're turning our fingers a little bit away from the face so we have more length towards the front. I hope this is making sense, guys. If it is, give us a thumbs up, let us know in the comments. If it's not quite making sense, let us know, and we'll be happy to go over anything again as well. So what I'm doing is I'm elevating the hair up. I'm looking for my guideline that I've got in the back, so from what I've already cut in the back, and I'm looking for my fingers to move away from the face. If they were turning into the face, it would end up shorter. If they're turning away from the face, it ends up longer. So we're looking for something that's going to end up being a little bit longer towards the front.
Chris from Athens says hi, he misses you.
We miss you guys too, brothers. It would be so nice to be back right now. So yeah, we're very much missing all our international friends, and we do send them much love, and we can't wait to see them soon. So we're bringing out another section. So very importantly, every time I'm working, I'm taking a new section from further up the head. So I've already completed the back. And what I'm looking to do is I have the back completed, and every time I do a section from the front, I'm taking a little guideline from the back so I can connect them each time as I work my way up. So the back is now a guideline from the front. So again, pulling the hair out, using the back of what we've already cut as a guideline, and then working my way towards the front, trying to maintain a little bit of length towards the front as we go. So my fingers are turning more away from the face rather than to the face. This will help maintain a lot more length towards the front as we work, so we can see a lot more length in the front. Okay, so it's going to have a really interesting kind of like bob mullet variation going on here. So kind of like a lot of things happening at once in this haircut. To be honest, I possibly wouldn't section this all off in the beginning unless I'm teaching. I think when you're teaching, it's very important to try and have a more clear vision of where you're going. so you guys can follow. And the same when you're starting out, it's important to have very clean sections so you can see what you're doing. And then afterwards, you might want to work a little bit more free flow with it. But I always think in the beginning, when you're not 100% or when you're teaching, it's nice to section things out a little bit more so you can really identify where you are within the haircut and where you're going with it, so you don't get lost in your sections basically, and you can think a little bit more about your placements before you commit. And I think that's the nice thing. Sections are almost like sketching a haircut. You can really design the haircut before you start, from having your sections mapped out from before you start. Cool, so we're almost finished on one side. And then what we'll do afterwards, again, I will not cross-check. I will wait until I've done the second side and then cross-check together. I think the important thing, or the reason for doing that for me, is to make sure that there's more balance. So if I can see that I've gone a bit too long on one side, I can always refine it with a cross-check. Whereas if I've already cross-checked and I realize I've made a mistake, there's nothing I can do apart from go back to the beginning and start again. Beautiful. So the real secret here is just making sure that the fingers are angling away from the head shape. So my fingers are pointing away from the head shape as I work. And that's going to give us a nice little bit of graduation. Okay, so last one. So we find the corner, we find where we haven't cut hair from yet. So we have the corner, we're moving our fingers away from the head shape. Beautiful. So what I'll do is I will do a little recap for you guys now and explain what we've done so far and where we're at. Cool. So I'm Michael Pizzolidis. I'm from Slade Hair Education. This is my living room. Welcome. So what we're doing is we are doing a little bit of a mullety bob variation. We had essentially, I'll show you on the second side first. What we had sectioned off the back and the sides. Okay, we first worked through the back and we created some nice flat graduation in the back. The shape of this was done quite square. So if you look from left to right, it was done quite square, but the angle of it was quite flat. So it's not heavy, it's quite flat. And then what we did is when we're coming to the sides here, is we're connecting from the back and we're going towards the front. But if you come from the top end here a little bit, what we did was we were angling our fingers away from the face more. So if we kept this quite tight, we'd end up quite short at the front, but we want to have a little bit more length in the front. So what we're doing is we're just angling our fingers a bit more away from the face in order to have this nice silhouette. So it's very flat. It's going to be very flat on the sides. It's going to be very square. And the sides are going to be angled a little bit more what we call triangular. So they're a bit shorter in the back, a bit longer in the front. The sections at the top come higher, and then they come towards lower in the back. The reason for this is because we want to encourage the hair to be heavier in the back, and we want to encourage it to be a bit lighter in the front. So we are going to lighten the front a little bit more, but that's the next step. So to just start to do the second side. So if you missed us doing the first side, don't worry, we're going to do the exact same thing now on the second side, and then cross-check before we move on to the top. Cool, as always, as we said, let us know where you're tuning in from, what you're up to today.
Zara would like to know where your comb is from.
So the comb is YS Park. It's a YS Park comb. It's very fun because it has the numbers on it, so you can have a little measure if you want to see how crazy you are and you want to keep checking, you have the ability to. So I think that you can buy them in a lot of different places. Obviously Hairbrain sells some really nice combs as well. So what we're doing is the first section is quite high up, Okay, it's not very low, it's quite high up. The reason is I want to have hair that I've already cut from the back to have as a guideline. If I took it lower, because there's no hair, because we haven't cut it, there's no guideline. So first reason for going that high is because I want to have a guideline to work from. The second reason is because by lifting it up higher, I'm actually layering that first section. And so you're going to see a bit of softness, much like what we've done on the first side. We have a bit of softness, which is going to help blend in the mullet beast that we have in the back. So it's not just going to drop out of nowhere. Okay, so this first one is lifted higher up, like we said, to match with our guideline. But what else we want to do, the other thing we want to do, is, as we said, we want to turn our fingers more away from the face. So instead of staying tight towards the face, we just angle our fingers a little bit more away from the face. So coming with the comb from underneath, so we really encourage more elevation. Cool. So that is going to allow us to have that softness there. So you see the softness that we have. So we're going to work from this point down is going to be a layer, as you can see, and from this point up we're going to graduate it. So it's going to have that nice angle where it kind of has the softness in the bottom but builds up a nice shape towards the top. Cool. So we're going to just keep working in the same way. So we're just going to be taking horizontal sections, working across the head from the back to the front. We're going to be taking a little piece of hair from the back as a guideline. And then we're going to be connecting the hair in, and we're going to be angling our fingers away from the face, and therefore leaving more length towards the front. So I think the important thing here is if you understand a little bit about the angles of your fingers and how close or far away they are from the head shape, you can really start deciding what you want to create. You know, you can have an idea about having something a little bit longer in the front or something that's a little bit more balanced. You know, the options are very much there for you now that you know how to control the length from the back to the front. I think that's the nice one. Once you start having more control, you can start deciding for yourself before you even start cutting what ideas you have and what you want it to look like. So again, nice section taken out. A little bit of hair from the back as a guide. Clip it away so we don't get lost in our sections. Elevate the hair nice and high and start to connect it across. We can see that the length in the front ends up getting a little bit longer because of our fingers being angled further away. Beautiful.
So got more people tuning in.
Amazing. Hi everyone. What I'll do is I'm going to finish these next 3 sections and then I'm going to do a really nice recap for you about where we are up to now and how I'm going to start cross-checking. So we've finished the back, we've finished the other side, we're working through the second side now as well, and we're just creating the length in the front. So we're using elevation now to create this very, very flat graduation. And then we're moving our fingers away from the head shape to create more length towards the front. So it's going to have a bit of an interesting shape, this, from kind of like flat square graduation in the back towards a flat triangular length towards the front. So we can see that shape coming in nicely as well. Cool, so I'm just continuing across. So I'm taking horizontal sections from the back to the front. I'm using a little bit of the back as a guideline because I've already cut the back, so I can use a little piece from the back to see the length that I want to create in the front. I lift the hair up, comb it nicely. I see my guideline from what I previously cut, and I start to work across. Beautiful. Okay, so you can see that my sections are following my original section. So the sections are following what I've already created. So it's very much a continuation of what I'd already started from my sectioning. Take a little bit of the back as a guideline. Lifting the hair up, seeing where the section starts. So where the back had already been cut, I'm starting from there so I can see the guideline from the beginning. Working my way across. Luckily my model's very open. She doesn't mind this much hair coming off, which is always nice. Okay, we can start to see that nice flat graduation in the back towards this nice flat graduation on the side, but comes into this triangular shape, so it comes longer towards the front, and we have our lovely little mullet area. So the last section, and I'm going to do a proper little recap for you guys from beginning to end. Alright, so if you're just tuning in, bear with me for 1 minute, and I'm going to give you a full recap of what we've done so far. Okay, so just comb the hair nicely so it's ready for me before I start. I can take a little bit of the underneath away so I don't get lost. Comb the hair onto my fingers, pulling it out, looking for where the hair's already been cut from the back, and then connecting it through. So the amount of elevation I'm using here is really kind of up to me. It depends how flat I want to make the sides and the top. Now what I'm going to do is after this, I'm actually going to layer this top area. So right now I'm just putting in my baseline for this haircut, really. Okay, so if we go back to the middle, just connect that in quickly, some bits fell in. Okay, so what we've got is we started in the back and we sectioned off 2 sides. So we sectioned off one side and we sectioned off the other side. So we were just working through quite a small section through the back. Okay, so what happened is we have a small section in the back and we had clipped away or braided away the length that we wanted to maintain as the mullet. We then came through with center sections and we cut this very flat graduation in the back, and then we worked through section by section to the side. So the second section was brought to the first, the third section was brought to the second, and so on and so forth. Same on the other side, therefore creating a little bit more length in the corners and creating something quite flat and square in the back. What we then did was we worked through the sides. The first thing we did was the first section was elevated quite high up. So the first section at the bottom was elevated high up in order to leave a little bit of a layer at the bottom and a little bit of this length that we see here. After that, we took horizontal sections that worked across the head from the back to the front, and we angled our fingers away from the head shape and we connected it all the way to what we had already cut in back. And so after that, we had this nice little graduation that we can see on the sides here with the flatness in the back. Now what I want to do is I want to cross-check the sides, and after I cross-check the sides, I want to then layer the top more before I go into the top section as well. So I'm going to show you how I cross-check the sides. I'm just going to be taking vertical sections. Yeah, do we have any questions?
We've got a question, one from Greg, and Lisa's quite similar. Greg asks, so flat graduation meaning holding the hair out horizontal to the floor?
So what I mean by flat graduation is I mean the fingers are angled a little bit more flat towards the head as opposed to being more heavy. So for me, a heavier graduation would be something that comes at this kind of an angle, so it comes very heavy from the top and it sits with a much more sticking out shape. But what I did was I angled my fingers much more closer towards the head shape, so it ends up looking a lot flatter in the back, so it doesn't stick out quite as much. So I hope that answers your question. Thank you, Greg and Lisa. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to clip away the top for 1 minute, and I'm going to focus on the sides here. So I'm going to stand from the back, and I'm just going to look to make sure what I'm seeing in my fingers is clean. So I'm just looking for a really nice clean shape from the bottom to the top. A little secret here is to give it a little bit more elevation, and you're always going to find that your haircuts flow a little bit better when you kind of elevate a little bit higher when you cross-check. And it already just makes the hair sweep a little bit nicer. Okay. So what I like to do here is I actually like to pull the hair towards the back of the section. What this does is it encourages the hair to kind of flick towards the face, because you're encouraging the back to be shorter and the front to be longer. And short hair is always a bully, right? Short hair kind of pushes the long hair forward. So it's going to really create more of this flickiness forward by pulling the hair back when we cross-check. So what I do is when I take my section, I'm pulling it towards the back of the section that I've taken, and I'm just cross-checking all the way up. So this is our 24th Hairbrain Live. It's actually our celebration today of 2 years of Hairbrain Live, so monthly Hairbrain Live. So if you guys do a little search on Facebook and write Hairbrain and Slade Hair Education Live, you'll find another 24 videos we've done over the years for you guys to look at, so no shortage there.
Andrea says, can you use a white blouse?
A white gown, yeah. I was thinking that. I was thinking that when I got dressed. I should have
No time for a
quick costume
quick change.
I'm afraid not. But what I can do is I can stand further away while I cross-check so you guys can see better. My business partner, Gregory, he always goes to work in a white shirt because he thinks he can see better when he cross-checks. So it's definitely a good idea there. Cool. So I've just cross-checked one side. It's just given it a little bit more encouragement to flick towards the face, which I'm happy with. And what I'll do is I'll cross-check the second side now. And we won't work on the top yet, so I'm just going to clip it away a little bit nicer. Okay. So again, I'm trying to think what's going to be easiest for you guys to see. So I'll try and stand on the side here. And what I'm going to be doing is, if we look at the section, I'm going to be pulling the hair towards the back of the section. So in order to encourage the hair to flick forwards, I'm going to be pulling the hair back. So I'm looking to pull the hair all the way back to the back of that section in order to really encourage the hair to flick more towards the face. So I'm looking for a flicking forwards effect right now. Hence why I'm cross-checking like that. So it really does encourage the hair to kind of sit forwards when you pull the hair back like that when you're cross-checking. So again, pulling all the hair towards the back of the section, just making sure that from top to bottom we're nice and clean. Yeah, it's starting to have that nice flick. And always, each time I do it, I'm just pulling the hair all the way to the back, just so I'm encouraging the hair to fall forwards more. And so once we've done this, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to start layering these side sections before I work towards layering the top. So I'm going to be layering the top, but I'm going to layer these side sections first before I go on to layering the top as well.
Stefano asks, how are you going to make it work out if the mullet, he goes, how are you going to make work out in mullet if the back is graduated?
Yeah, so it's going to be an interesting mullet because we've got this extra long piece. So it's a bit of a cheeky mullet. It's going to have a little bit of graduation and then it's going to kind of drop off into this long area we have. So we're kind of saving that for the end to decide how much of a mullet we want to leave as well. So it's going to be interesting like that. Obviously from the sides we've left a little bit of a layer as well, just so we have the chance if we want to soften it as well. So it depends what you want to see. If you want to see something that's very much a severe mullet, so there's no blend, you don't have to have these bits. But if you want something that kind of blends a little bit better, you can always leave them. Cool. So what we want to do now is we want to start to just soften the sides. So right now it's a bit too heavy on the sides. We want to encourage it to be a little bit softer. So I would normally stand behind and do this, but I wore the wrong clothes for today. So let's try and bring all the hair back first. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to lift the hair up, and I'm going to start to layer the hair. So I want to keep the hair nice and flat. And what I'll do is I'll probably grab all the hair. So just by grabbing all the hair, what I can do is I can see the length in the front here, and to make sure that I'm not going to cut it. So even if I cut it that short, I can see I'm not going to affect the length at the bottom. So I'm just going to visually grab the hair at the back and make sure I'm not cutting the length at the back either. And so by doing this, what I'm doing is I'm slimming the top of the head, and that's going to allow me to connect my layering much better. So right now what I'm looking to slim it, and I'm looking for a little bit less weight on the side so I can connect the layering through as well. So it's a very quick thing to do, but the effects are very, very, very quick that you see them, where the weight just slims through the top as well. So we'll do the same on the second side. So we pick all the hair up. Now what I did was I measured with my hands how many fingers am I away from the head. So I'm about 4 or 3 fingers away from the head. And once I'm happy, I can start working my way towards the back. So this is actually better when it's done in one flow, like one movement, one cut. So rather than trying to do this in different sections, it's better to just grab all the hair and lift it up and cut it. That way you know that you've got all the hair, you haven't missed any bits, they're all the same length, they will blend nicer. So sometimes actually doing things in one movement is better than trying to do it in more. So this is just soften the top. It's just slim the top a little bit more, and now it's going to be much easier for us when we connect the top as well. So let me just do a very, very brief recap, and then we'll move on to the top. So what we're going to do. Okay, so we started in the back. I'm just going to get a second comb so it's easier for me to show you. Cool. So what we did was we took the back section first. So we sectioned off either side and we just worked through the back first. We cut in a graduation in the back that was quite flat, but we kept it very square. So from either side it was very square. We have left a little bit out that will be our mullet area for later on. Once we came from this corner we had to the side, we already had the back finished. And what we did was we then connected the sides, but we moved it a little bit away from the face. So each time we connected it, we ended up with a little bit more length in the sides. We did the same on the other side. So we just connected it across, moving the hair a bit away from the face. We then lifted all the hair up and we laid through the top, same on both sides. So from now it's completely balanced in terms of whatever we did on one side, we did the same on the second side. Now I have a chance to cut the top and connect the back and the sides to what we're going to do in the top now. So it's going to be a nice little round layer in the top. And so what we want to see is we want to see something that blends from the front to the back and the sides. So there will be no disconnection in the top. It will be blended for now.
Greg asks, did you create intentional vertical corners behind the ear? Or does that round off there?
No, I've intentionally created the corners behind the ears. I very much want to see that interesting shape. So for me, it's kind of a quirky shape. It's not very conventional. You know, normal shapes would not have corners in the sides here. They would have something which a bit softer. But because I'm going to go for something that has maybe a little bit more of a dramatic effect, or the haircut looks a bit more intentional, it looks like I was trying to do that, then that's the reason why I wanted to do it. So it's just going to create a little bit more strength in the haircut. So I'm going to come now and I'm going to connect the back and I'm going to create the length in the front. So I'm going to take a nice little vertical section in the middle. So I'm going to comb away the hair that I'm not using for now. So just a nice little section in the middle. Moving the hair away from left to right. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to start from the front. And I'm going to work my way towards the back. So I'm just going to move some of that hair away, and I'm going to be keeping a little mindful eye of that length in the back, because I want to make sure at some point I connect to it. So I've got to think from the length I end up in the front that I want to come around and start connecting to the length in the back. So from here I have to decide the length that I want in the front. So I want to go for something quite short. I want there to be a nice little fringe in here. So I'm going to go from something quite short in the front. And then afterwards, what I'm going to do is, as I'm working this, I'm going to start to turn my fingers towards the length that we see in the back, because I want to blend the back, I want to connect the back. Every time I come up, I'm just thinking to myself the length that I have there. So I'm just thinking each time I'm working about connection, I'm thinking about the connection. So again, just being very visual in terms of every time I pick up a bit of hair, I'm just looking at the length that I have in the back, and I'm thinking to myself, is this going to be okay? If I go too steep, I'm going to end up with too much weight in the top as I go around. So I've got to make sure that I kind of connect it more flat rather than really going for something very accentuated towards the top of the head. So now, because I'm getting to the top of the head, so this is the widest point of the head, I want to make sure that I'm nice and flat. I don't want to see any bulge there. I don't want to see any weight in that area. Beautiful.
Got a question from Zara.
Hi, Zara.
She asked, will you usually cut your graduation this way if it wasn't a mullet? I thought mullet usually needs to be with layers.
So I think the word mullet really can be used in so many different ways. I think for me, the only way I see a mullet is if I see a lot more length towards the back of the head, I would call it a mullet. So you've got to forgive me, all you purist mullet people out there who kind of see mullets in a specific way. I would really just change this depending on what I'm going for. So I could start doing a haircut from the front, from the back. It really does depend on what I'm interested in seeing at the end of it. And so because I wanted to create this very strong square shape in the back with this layer on top, I felt like it was best to start from the back, create the baseline in the back from the graduation, use that to create the length on the sides. So by having the back done, it was very easy for me to then create the length on either side, working my way up. And so I worked from the back, which gave me balance on either side of the front. And then I worked through that layering, and now I'm going to layer through the top. So I think one of the other reasons for me to work the way I do is a lot to do with trying to get more balance. So if I start in the back, I feel like I have much more balance when I then want to work through the sides and the top. So I hope that answers your question, Zara. If it does, let me know. And if it doesn't, let me know. Cool. So I'm just going to start from the front again. Okay. And at this point, I'm more or less working on the base. I'm not trying to over-direct the hair left or right so much. I'm trying to actually create a very similar length as I work through. Because what I don't want to do is I don't want to end up having too much length in the sides and then it doesn't connect to the underneath. So if I was pulling the hair more back, it would end up too long towards the sides, it wouldn't round. So in order for it to connect, to round, I'm just pulling my hands further out as I work. Okay, I'll try and stand on the side for you guys so you can see a little bit better. So how many of you guys out there are working on your dolls these days? How many of you have bought dolls and are working on them? It would just be nice if in a month the hair grew back, right?
Maria Petco, she says, hi Michael and MJ, hope you are well. She asks if it is, would it fit in?
So this would probably come under our creative course just because it's a little bit too edgy for a salon creative look, I would say, which would come under our abstract. But because we have very definitive disconnection in the back, for us this normally would sit in our creative courses. So if you wanted to learn something like this, it's better off to go to a creative course because it's just a little bit too kooky, I think, for a classic course. And for us, we always define anything with disconnection as a creative haircut. So that's just how we kind of define it in our language. Cool, so we got this nice round layer coming in. And what I'm going to do is once I've worked through this vertically, I'm actually going to start coming back and I'm going to connect them horizontally. And the reason for this is it's much safer. So I'll explain that now. So what we have is, we have this length that we've created in the top here. We have the length that we've created underneath this kind of graduated bob feeling. And now what we want to do is we want to connect the top to the sides. And so I can keep pulling the hair up vertically, but it's much harder to see where it connects. So if I just come across horizontally, what I can do is I can just lift the hair up, find the point where it connects, so we can see it there. And I can just come across and start connecting it now. I'll show you guys again. So that's nice. So that's a really easy way to make sure that everything connects nicely. So again, just working through horizontally, pulling all the hair towards the back of the section, lifting the hair up, and making sure that everything blends nicely. So we've definitely got this short piece with the length coming towards the front, but visually, it's blended and technically it's blended.
Alicia, she says she's working on her dolls and her 2-year-old daughter is helping.
Oh,
Lol.
Bless. Bless. You see, it's a good time to start training up your kids. If you need a new assistant in the salon, get them sweeping up from now, get them ready for it. If you're going to do a little braid bar, normally it's good if you can rope your kids into it as well. I'm trying to currently teach my dog to do braids, but it's not going very well.
I think she means she was training on her daughter.
Oh, not the daughter's been training on her doll heads.
No.
I also know what you mean, because I always just imagine when kids start to see dolls, they just think it's like a massive Barbie that they get to play with. Anyway, that's how I would be, so that's fine. I feel privileged. I'm a grown man that's allowed to play with dolls all day for work. All right, nice. So what we've done there is we've just allowed ourselves to make sure that everything from the top to the bottom is nice and blended. And what I can see visually for myself is there's just a little bit too weight at the bottom, and so I'm going to go through and connect that at the end. So first of all, what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep working in a balanced way. So I'm going to do the second side first. And after I finish this second side and everything's connected to my liking, I'm going to go through and I'm just going to slim this area towards the top of the head here. Same on the second side. And then I can start thinking about drying off. Cool. So I'm just going to work through the center and connect the layering first through the center. Beautiful. So what we're going to do now is we're going to be connecting our layering through the top. So we've already created a bit of a round layer through the top on the one side, and what we're going to be doing is we're going to be working through now on the second side in order to connect it. So what we want to do here is we've already got the guideline from one side, and we're going to be working through now to connect the second side. So I'm just using the hair that's already been cut from the middle as a guide. I'm working my way through from the back towards the front. On the first side, I worked from the front towards the back. So the reason why I'm changing is because my body position changes, and the side that I'm working on changes. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to do 2 sections from the top, and then same as I did on the first side, I'm going to come across horizontally and I'm going to connect it.
Misty asks, what mannequin head are you using?
So this one is called Exalto. Exalto. I don't know if they're available in America, to be honest. I don't know where you're based, but Exalto are a French company, so they're based in France. So if you do live in Europe, I know 100% they can ship them to anywhere in Europe you like, but I do not think that they are available in America. I think if you're in America, the 2 best that I know of is Hair Art and Pivot Point. I think you can't go wrong with those 2. So if you're in Europe, that's Exalto. And if you're in America, I would probably say your best bet is Hair Art or Pivot Point as the best dolls you can buy.
James Egg has just tuned in.
What's up, James? So I'm missing my partner in crime. So our UK director, James Akers, we normally always do the lives together. But he's abandoned me to go live in the countryside now. Peaceful life. He's going to take up gardening soon, he told me. So, yeah, it's very interesting for us. It's the first time that I'm going to do a Hairbrain Live without someone with me, a third person to ask the questions, and our first time doing a doll. So this is very much the first time for many things on this Hairbrain Live.
Stefano asks, are the sides going to look like a graduated layered bob?
The sides will look like a graduated bob that's been laid on top. So the sides will look like a graduated bob that's been laid on top. So what we're doing now is we're coming towards the top, and what we're doing is we're connecting it in. So if I had have kept working across vertically, it would have been much harder for me to see the connection. So now coming across horizontally, we've got a guideline from the underneath and a guideline from the top. And all we really have to do at that point is just blend them. So what I'm looking at is I'm looking from the top and I'm looking from the sides, and I'm just seeing where the point is that I can connect the hair to. So providing I can connect the hair, I'm happy. Okay, so after this bit's done, I'll give you guys another quick recap. We're going to slim the sides slightly, and then we're going to come through and start layering, start blow drying the whole haircut.
Francesco is asking, would you apply the same technique at the top with a different type of head shape?
Yeah, I think you can. The difference is if they have, let's say, a very pointy head, like an egg head, you just don't want to go so round. Because if you go very round towards the top of the head, you're just going to be accentuating that roundness. So if they have a very wide head and you go for something very rounded, you're just going to make them look more like an egg. So if you're going to go for something round, maybe the round doesn't have to go very high up. Maybe the round can come and flatten towards the top, so it's more smooth. That way you're working with the head shape. So I always slightly adjust my angles to depending on the head shape I'm working on. Just because they have a very big head doesn't mean that you can't do round or vice versa. It just means maybe the angles have to be adapted for that person's head shape better. So I hope that answers your question. Let us know. Amazing. So what I'm going to do is I'll just slim the sides first, and then we'll just do a full-on recap and start drying. So what I can see here is I can see there's a little bit too much weight right where the head rounds the most. So,
Bless you.
pretty much sneezed then. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be slimming this area here where you can see my comb is. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start from the back, and I'm going to work my way towards the front. So I'm just taking diagonal sections from the back towards the front, combing the hair forward so it stays out of my way, and I'm just going to be looking to slim this area here. So even if it's on a human or a doll, I can see that this part is where the head sticks out the most, and there's quite a corner there. So I'm just going to be encouraging to slim that area down. Again, and I'm going to be looking to slim that area down. So this is just a slimming exercise for the sides. They're just going to look a little bit better if they're a bit slimmer to the bone structure.
Well, I got a question from James. He asks, what's your thought process when coming up with this haircut?
My thought process was, what can I do that's going to look cool? So basically I was just thinking a little bit to myself, okay, I started with the feature, I wanted to have this mullet area. I then kind of imagined how I wanted the back to sit nice and flat, and then I thought, actually, what would look better on this doll would to have a little bit more length towards the front. But I wanted to keep it softer in the top, so from that it was kind of decided already. Flat graduation in the back, nice little bit of length towards the sides, elevated high up and layered through the top so you get this softness. And so I worked kind of from a feature in the back, the interesting bit, the mullet area. Then I worked to what kind of length would be suitable towards the front. And then from that, I thought about what I wanted to have in the top in terms of a fringe and things like that, and how I wanted it to look. Did I want it to look blended or not? So I normally try and work from features. So I think to myself, what is going to make this haircut look pretty cool? And in this case, it was that little bit at the back. And then from that, I kind of worked through the classic way of doing a haircut in terms of what's going to be suitable, how can I make this feature work within a haircut, and so on and so forth. So everyone's creative process is different. But for me, it's very important to be able to visualize it. If you can't imagine it, I don't think you can build it. So you have to really be able to kind of imagine what you're creating before you start, in order to really have the best chance of getting to where you want to go in an hour that you have in the salon. Let me know if that answers your question, James. Cool. So we're trying to get our UK director, James, some dolls so he can start doing some lives for you. Because at Slate we do a live every month on our own Facebook page at Slate Hair Education, and we've got a nice little playlist of all James lives. So if you do want to go check it out, you can just go to Slate Hair Education, and that's Facebook page, and you can see our live videos. Cool. What's up?
James asks, is the rat tail inspired from your Australian heritage?
Which one?
Is the rat tail inspired from your Australian heritage?
Indeed. Actually, we were going for a little bit of a kangaroo vibe, but that's afterwards. That's the next haircut. Cool. So the only thing I'm thinking of now is, from my experience, I know that it's just a little bit too heavy in the front here. So I have two options. One, I can get rid of it now, or two, I can do it later. But because I know it's going to be an issue, I'd like to just get rid of it now. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be looking towards slimming this area. So I'm going to be taking it up high. Not too high, but high enough. And there's a corner there. And I'm going to be removing that corner. And what that's going to do is it's just going to slim that place there. And this is quite prevalent on all humans. We kind of stick out a lot just in that area. And so it's very, very nice normally to try and slim those areas down. So we're looking for that corner again, and we're just slimming it down. And this is just going to help. I'm always trying to kind of slim the bone structure. Where the bones stick out a lot, I'm always just trying to slim the areas down as much as possible. Okay, so with these areas here, the long bit, I might actually remove them later. But what I'd like to do is for now leave them just to give me the opportunity to whether I want to slim them down or not afterwards. So I'm going to grab a little bit of product. We're going to start to dry the haircut off and see how it's looking generally, and then see how much refinement we want. So I'm going to take the braid out now. So I'm just going to comb it nicely out. I'm going to add a little bit of product to this and then start to blow dry it for you.
Jacob asked, what would the pre-dry would you do on this?
So the pre-dry is going to be pretty much the main dry in this case, because what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be actually wrap drying this haircut. So otherwise I might pre-dry it with a wrap dry technique and then use a round brush or whatever I was going to use in that case. But because I'm going to keep this quite sleek and smooth in the top, what I'm going to be doing is I'm simply going to be doing a pure wrap dry technique. So a vest brush, moving the hair from left to right and just making sure it all sits nicely. Cool, that feels good. I'm going to add a little bit of oil. Okay, it feels nice. Alright, so I'm just going to grab a brush, a little vest brush, and I'll talk you through the dry now. So I'm going to be just blow drying forwards, down, forwards, down, and I'll show you now. So I don't want to have a lot of volume in the top, so I'm just going to be blow drying quite flat. Luckily, I don't have to worry about burning my client today. She's got a high pain threshold, she told me. That's always good. Okay. So because we're working with dolls, one thing that they always makes them, in my opinion, look really shit is when they're very, very voluminous in the hairline. So it's okay if you want to give volume in the top, but I always try and make the outline sit very flat. That's, I feel like, what makes the dolls look a little bit better when they're working on them. So I think that's something for me that's quite important, is just making sure that the roots are nice and flat. So I work through the roots first, and then I'll work through the ends afterwards. So it's just trying to make sure the outline, the hairline, is sitting nice and flat in the roots.
Lisa's asking what mousse did you use?
Yeah, so this one was from a brand called Milkshake. We worked with them when we were in Greece. And this one is simply called whipped cream. So it's a bit of whipped cream from Milkshake. It just makes the hair really nice and soft to work with. So it's not really a styling product. It's more of a pre-blow dry or prep product. It's very nice for making the hair smooth. So I really like it for those reasons. So we can start to see some of the shape that's coming up. It's a little bit more flat in the front and the sides, and then we have this nice little bit of length towards the back as well. So just smoothing the hair a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the second side, and then we'll go on to the back as well. Okay, and then we can start thinking about personalizing. So again, just trying to keep the roots really nice and flat.
James asks, have you got any tips in making blow dry even on both sides?
Yeah, I mean, I normally try and keep the handle facing more away. So each time I'm working, if I'm keeping the handle facing away on this side, it just encourages the hair to kind of flick more onto the face. And it's the same on the other side. Providing I keep the handle facing towards the face, again, it helps encourage the hair to flick to more towards the face. So just by keeping the handle towards the chin on whichever side you're working on will help you a lot, I think, in that respect.
Dennis said something really nice. He says, I've been in the business for 25 years and I've actually learned some things from you today, so thank you.
Thanks, Dennis, as always, man. Really hope your family's well as well. Amazing. Cool. So yeah, I'm not trying to blow dry the bottom too much. This mullet area, I'm just trying to smooth the bits on top a little bit more. So I might have put an iron on this, but I don't have one at home, so I won't. It's always a good choice. It's always a good choice when you have no choice. Beautiful. So you can start to see how those soft bits kind of help that area blend just a little bit better. And we haven't really started working on that area yet, so that's another thing to look into afterwards. I'm not knocking the wife's plants, I promise. It's fine. Alright.
Stefano's asking, would you dress this haircut with a tail free or in a braid?
Tail free, I think. You know, obviously this is completely up to the individual. There's no right or wrong here. It's whatever the individual decides they would like to achieve with this, it kind of works. So I would say it's really up to the individual what they want to see. So I think for now, basically, it's very tight, it's very closed on the face. So I'm definitely going to want to open it up and bring out a little bit more of the face shape as well. So we'll be personalizing it now. We'll be working on the fringe. I'm just going to lightly dry the back as well. Sorry, my model's head's never fallen off before. It was the first time for everything. I found that works really well. If you have clients that move a lot, you can just, and then they don't seem to move anymore. It's really interesting. Just let me know when you've tried that technique and how well it works. So I just wanted to make sure this was dry, so when I wanted to do any kind of personalizing on it, I could afterwards. I'm going to be slimming down some areas, personalizing some areas, and then afterwards I'll be spraying it for you as well. Okay, so I'm liking everything. The only thing that I'm not liking right now is the front is a bit too heavy for me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in and I'm going to try and slim this front area down a little bit more. So I'm going to do this by pulling the hair forwards and actually layering it from the front all the way towards the top. I feel like this should be enough to kind of slim down the front and open it up a little bit more. So yeah, that's looking better for me. If you look at one side compared to the other, this side's the slimmer side, this side's the heavier side. It's already starting to look a little bit better, and we're not finished yet. So again, second side, I'll just be pulling the hair forwards, and I'll be cutting it from the outline, so from the length in the front, all the way to the top, just to slim it down a little bit more. So that is just going to slim down that area around the face just a little bit more, which I like. So each time I do that, I can just slim the front a little bit more, which is nice. Okay. So I'm just going to pop the head back up straight and lift it up a little bit better. Okay. Beautiful. So I want to open up this face area a lot more than what I've currently done. That's looking good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to put a little bit of hairspray in, and I'm going to start to open up the face shape a little bit more, create the kind of interesting features I want to see in the front. The only thing I'm thinking of now is the back. I'm thinking I've left this area long for a little bit of safety, and now I'm thinking, do I want to keep it, or do I want to kind of take it in a little bit tighter? So I'm just having a little think. I think I'm going to keep it, but I'm just going to take it a bit tighter in this area at the top here. So the easiest way for me to slim down this area here is to actually lift the hair up, find that point where I want to slim it, and just start to dust that area down. And so this is just, again, trying to kind of feel the bone structure. So when I put my fingers in, I'm actually grabbing the head underneath it. I'm finding where the widest point is, and I'm just slimming it down. And it's very, very subtle, but it just creates a bit more of a smooth silhouette as we work down into this mullet area. And I'll probably use the clippers afterwards just to blend it in a little bit more. So I'm going to do the same on the second side. Move away the mullet area, lift up the hair to where I feel the head shape sticks out the most. So I'm putting my fingers onto the head, pulling it out, and I feel where the head shape sticks out the most. And I start to come in and slim it a little bit. Yeah, very nice. So I'm just going to work through the hairspray. Now, what I wouldn't normally do is I wouldn't normally do this on a person. Anyone who's watched my hairbrain lives kind of knows that I don't normally spray before I refine. But on a doll, you kind of have to think a little bit differently. You have to realize that it's a doll you're working on, and it's not going to react 100% the same as when you work on a human. So one of my top tips for you guys at home now in quarantine, where you've got a doll, is think a little bit differently when you're working with a doll. Don't be afraid to use a little bit of hairspray before you refine it. It's just going to make your life a lot easier when it comes to actually doing the final details with them as well, and basically with the hair not moving. So on a human, obviously, you know, the hair moves, you want to make sure it looks good when the wind blows, but on a doll you can kind of think of it more like a photo shoot. You just want it to look good in that moment, and therefore what you're going to be doing is you're going to be making sure that it's looking how you want it to look from before you start to personalize it. So a little bit of hairspray helps with the personalization a little bit more, helps you have a little bit more control, and you can go in and start to personalize it straight away. Quite like a little bit of that coming out. Cool. Looking a little bit moddy. I like it. Alright, so now we're going to start personalizing the fringe area. So what I'm going to be doing here is I'm going to be thinking about how much I want to open up the face shape and how much I want to close the face shape. So judging by what I see, I'm thinking I want to lift it up at least a finger, and I want to make it softer as well. So I'm going to go in first just by breaking it up to the kind of length that I'm interested in seeing. I'm working through the middle first because I want to create some kind of balance in what I'm doing. So I'm just looking to kind of break the front and see the length. I'm going to work to the corner of each eye first, so that gives me a little bit more symmetry when I'm working. So if I kind of just work from one side all the way to the other, it might not have as much balance. So I'm trying to keep myself with a little bit more balance as I work. So I'm going to work to the corner of each eye first. Okay.
Misty says, poke her in her eye with laughing, crying face.
Don't worry. This model is very, very nice to me. She doesn't mind what I do. Cool. So yeah, as we said, it's the first time we're doing a doll on Hairbrain Live. So it's been an interesting experience. She's not much of a conversationalist, but she's very open with her hair. So that's always good. So who misses asking their clients how their holidays were? That's always another one. So what I've done is I've worked through the middle first from eye to eye. Now it doesn't look nice because I haven't opened up the sides yet, but what we're going to do is we're going to work from this area in the middle, and we're going to work from the corners and open it up and connect it in. So theoretically, if we have balance on both sides here and I work from the outside and connect it in, it should look a lot better. So I've gone in, I've saved the length in the front. I'm just coming up, opening the face. These scissors, I mean, I don't know if you guys noticed, but I changed about 3 different scissors as I work, just because each one does something slightly different for me. This one's very good for pointing. So it's very good for opening up the face shape, for doing these softer feelings, and the other ones I had were a lot more blunt. So they were very good for kind of getting in clean lines and things like that. So I think it's also nice to think a little bit about what tools you're using, because some scissors just can't point into, and like these ones, they can't really do blunt cutting. So I think for me, it's already looking a little bit better. It's a little bit more opened, which I like as well. I think at the end, I'll just style it out a little bit more as well. But you can see how we worked from one side and we just connected it and opened it up. And what we'll do is we'll come from the second side now and we'll do the same thing. We'll just go in and we'll look to really be opening up the sides as well. So we're just going in, opening and closing the blade, looking to open up the face shape. So we can see the guideline that we have and how it's just starting to open up the front as well. So this is really nice for opening up cheekbones and things like that. You know, whenever you have a client or a model and you want to really accentuate around the eyes, accentuate the features, open up the cheekbones, this is a really beautiful thing you can do to just start to open up the face a little bit better. Okay, cool. So what I can do now is I can work through as one fluid movement and just make sure that I'm happy with how it's looking. So I'm just going to be breaking this up a little bit more. One of the nice things about dolls is the other thing is once you've kind of cut one haircut, it's always nice to kind of think how you're going to get another haircut in afterwards. So you kind of build yourself some nice little parameters to work in because of the last haircut. And then you can just start to think about what you want to do next as well, which is always fun. Okay, I'm going to do the second side. Oh. Her head hasn't fallen off yet, that's always good. Wow. Cool. So again, I'm just going to open up this area here. So I'm still staying with the short pieces, but I'm just creating a little bit more of a connection, let's say, a little bit more flow between what's going on at the back and what's going on at the front. So it's just a little bit more visually blended. So it's a bit of an interesting mullet shape, I would say, a little bit unconventional mullet. One little cheat you can always do is if you want to slim down and blend the mullet a little bit better, especially on a doll, you can just slim it in as such. And so that's something really nice and easy that you guys can do at home just to help. Now, I wouldn't do this on a human so much, don't think I've overdone it, but on a doll, it definitely does help kind of smooth everything down. So for me, you know, if you kind of want to have fun with your doll these days, I think looking at things like a little bit of hairspray, don't be afraid to get the clippers out, because those were 2 things that I kind of refused to do in the past, and then afterwards realized I'm kind of missing a trick here. So it definitely does help just bring out a little something different to what you're doing. So certainly in the back there, I think that's going to help a lot. So I'm just going over the top, obviously. You don't want to kind of change anything. You just want to make everything look a little bit more blended, a little bit smoother. And that's always something nice to do. If you want to get rid of some extra hair. So that point of blending, you know, you can either use a razor or using clippers is always nice to just help things blend a little bit more. Okay, and then we can start to cut the ends a little bit more as well. And then we're going to slim the ends. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to get rid of some of those extra, and then we can start to just slice into this a little bit and just start to thin it out. So these ones are really good for that whole slicing thing. So these scissors are Hierarchy Cosmos. They're very, very good for kind of like softening and blending and all this kind of stuff, pointing. They're very, very good for those things. So again, just going to go through with a little bit of a slicing technique just to get rid of some of the excess, and then just give it a little point. Okay. We have a little bit more of a mullet vibe. So this one, just kind of getting rid of some of the hair on top. You can even come from underneath if you want, just to help it fan out a little bit more. So if you kind of come from underneath, you're just encouraging the hair to sit a little bit more out as well, which I like. It's a little bit softer. Okay. I personally just like these bits kind of coming out a little bit more, just a little bit more rock and roll. And push her head a little bit in the back. She's got to have a little bit of a rock and roll phase going on. So, last thing I want to do is just bust a little bit shorter in the middle. Okay, poke her in the eye a little bit, but that's okay. Cool, so I think that's it. We're good. So what we've got is we started in the back and we created our very nice flat graduation in the back. So you can see from the angle of my hand, the graduation wasn't very heavy. It was sitting much more flat against the head shape. We worked from side to side quite square. So it came across quite square, hence why you have that kind of flatter feeling in the back. Besides, what we did was when we came from the back here, we actually angled it a little bit away from the face, hence why we've got a little bit more length here. We worked up with the same elevation used in the back. So what I mean is, you see that angle we had? Every time we brought the sides in, we lifted it up higher so it connected each time. We did the same on both sides. We then took the corner that we had at the top and we elevated all of the hair. So all of the sides that we did, we elevated it up and we cut a layer in the top. So both sides. So both sides were cut angling away from the face, but elevating each time, connecting to the back. We then elevated all the hair up and layered the top. And then when we came through the top, we cut the top in rounded layers and connected it to the back. Hence why we've got all of this. Then we just came and busted in the fringe a little bit and did a touch of personalizing. Thank you so much for tuning in, guys. It's been lovely. Thank you for joining me in my living room. It's been great. We'll see you on the 8th of May for the next Hairbrain Live. Thanks so much and be safe, everyone. See you soon. Bye.